Some new concerns over the effect of Egyptian President Mohamed Morsi's latest decree on the stability in the region. As we've been reporting this morning, hundreds of protesters have been clashing with Egyptian police for a third straight day. And more massive demonstrations, both for and against Morsi, are planned for the coming week. Will Morsi's power grab plunge Egypt into a new round of uncertainty and shake up the already fragile Middle East? Or could he back down? Aaron David Miller is the former advisor to 6 secretaries of state and the vice president of the Woodrow Wilson Center. Mr. Miller, thank you for joining us on this Sunday morning.
Pleasure to be here, Eric.
Are you surprised at Morsi, what he did, and how it is now unfolding in Egypt?
Well, you know, the good news is you got a civilian, democratically elected president. The bad news is the Arab states are much more adept at acquiring power than sharing it. And the reality is that Mohamed Morsi comes from a party that's exclusivist. It has a vision for Egypt that is the Muslim Brotherhood. And it's a kind of a my way or the highway scenario. So the question is, if there was an opportunity to consolidate power to ensure that the Constituent Assembly is filled with his supporters, traditional Muslims looking to make Egypt into a more conservative traditional state, he's going to take it. There is opposition. I just wonder whether the seculars and the liberals have the kind of street cred and firepower in the proverbial streets to really provide an effective counter-challenge over time.
Well, it seems the Islamists and the Muslim Brotherhood would have an upper hand and that they would win in any type of confrontation.
Well, I think that's certainly the way it's played out over the last year or so. But remember, you've got the military waiting very uneasily in the wings. Its credibility is on the line because at the end of the day, it is the military that is still the most powerful force in the country and charged with securing and consolidating its stability. Eric, I think we have to realize this is a very long movie. You know, since 1950, only 22 countries in the world have maintained their democratic character continuously. So getting into this democratic club is something that's easily promised, but not that easily attained. And Egypt is a long way from that.
Yeah, well, what do you think the administration should do? I mean, they did not support Mubarak. Have we just replaced one dictator basically with another?
It's an interesting thought. You know, we're caught in the anomalous position. Within the last week, Mohamed Morsi became Barack Obama's new best friend. The president talked to him 6 times. Morsi did extraordinary work in securing this ceasefire, which probably will last in Gaza, between Israel and Hamas. So I think the real risk here is that we, the United States, will, in some respects, do the same thing we did with Mubarak. We will allow centralization of control, abuse of human rights in Egypt, if, in fact, the Egyptians play ball on interests that we have, including the peace process. That's the deal we made with Mubarak, and I think we're in danger, frankly, of acquiescing to that deal with Morsi, too.
And what happens if we acquiesce? I mean, you just mentioned President Obama, New York Times, saying that the president told aides, quote, he was impressed with the Egypt leader's pragmatic confidence. He sensed an engineer's precision with surprisingly little ideology, and the president called Morsi a straight shooter. Is that a correct assessment, or do you think a misjudgment?
Well, I think we can't confuse Morsi's long-term objectives, which is the consolidation of the control, and essentially making the Ikhwan, the Muslim Brotherhood, the key political force in the country with his tactics. And on the way to do that, remember, the brothers, and once a brother, always a brother, even though Morsi has technically resigned from the party in order to become president, the reality is they're in this for the long game. They'll be here long after Barack Obama leaves the White House. So we have to be careful here. We have to uphold our values as well as our national interests. And that's going to, I think, present a challenge that was tough for the last administration to walk, George W. Bush, and it's going to be tough for this one to walk as well.
You know, and Aaron, finally, you know, when they say Egypt goes Islamist, I mean, just it's like that domino effect, and the whole region is going to go completely Islamist and fall into with Iran and Egypt and Israel, big trouble for Israel. What's your prediction?
Well, Iran's a different story. I mean, I don't think you're in danger of creating a little Tehran on the Nile, but the reality is this is not an Arab Spring. Let's be clear. It's an Islamist Spring. When fair and free elections are held in this part of the world, it is the most ideological, the most well-organized, the most committed parties that actually do the best. That happened in Palestine, it happened in Lebanon, it happened in Iraq. and it's happening in Egypt. We just have to figure out a way to keep Morsi using what pressure and incentives and disincentives we have, pushing toward a transparent, pluralist form of government. But I have to tell you, Eric, it's really going to be tough.
Yeah, and we're going to have a troubling week, sadly, with all these demonstrations this next week. Aaron David Miller, Woodrow Wilson Center, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks, Eric.